Hello, my name is Flint. I'm a neurosurgeon practicing at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham in the UK. I have been asked to tell you something about a man called Bernard Williams, who was also a neurosurgeon practicing in Birmingham and who had a career-long interest in the conditions of Syringomyelia and Chiari malformations. I was privileged to have been one of his pupils, and it is an honour to speak to you about him. Birmingham is a large city located in the centre of England. It grew and became prosperous during the Industrial Revolution with the development of heavy industry, eventually supporting a multitude of trades. Prominent amongst these in the 20th century was the manufacture of cars and car components. These days, Birmingham is a cosmopolitan, multicultural society with its economy much more broadly based. Bernard Williams did not come from Birmingham, but from further north, closer to the city of Manchester, in a place called Stockport. He went to university in Birmingham, qualifying as a doctor in 1955. After military service, he worked in London and went on to begin his neurosurgical career at the National Hospital for Nervous Diseases in Queen's Square. He then returned to Birmingham, where he completed his neurosurgical training. His first consultant post was back up in the north of the country, in the city of Hull, lying on the Humber estuary. He worked there for 3 years before returning to Birmingham, where he continued to work until his untimely death in 1995 at the age of 63. At the time of the Second World War, there was a neurosurgical service in Birmingham located at the original Queen Elizabeth Hospital and run by the American neurosurgeon Dr. William Sweet. After the war, another unit was established in a former fever hospital in the town of Smethwick. Smethwick lies immediately next to Birmingham and is where the pioneer industrialist James Watt set up the foundry where he manufactured his famous steam engines. Smethwick Hospital, by then officially named the Midland Centre for Neurosurgery and Neurology, became the larger unit, although the neurosurgical department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital continued to develop as well. Located several miles away from Birmingham in the suburb of Edgbaston and close to the University of Birmingham campus, it housed the academic unit and the chair of neurosurgery. In 1996, the two units were amalgamated into an expanded department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Since then, the neurosurgical facilities have transferred to a new hospital on an adjoining site, the new Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham. Here, there are facilities to treat a wide range of adult medical and surgical conditions. It houses a major trauma unit, and the Royal Centre for Defence Medicine is also based there. The original heritage building is being redeveloped and now houses the Birmingham Institute of Translational Medicine. The person who established the original Smethwick unit was someone called Jack Small. Far from being small, he was a man of some physical stature, being a former Olympic standard hurdler. During the Second World War, Jack Small had run one of 6 British mobile neurosurgical units. Here he is seen with his unit. Another member of this team was Eric Turner, also a neurosurgeon, who went on to work in the original neurosurgical unit at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Jack Small had developed an interest in Chiari and Syringomyelia, and he was aware of the work of his US colleague, Dr. James Gardner. Gardner is known for his part in designing the Gardner-Wells skull traction tongs, but his name is also firmly associated with Chiari malformations. Bernard Williams was, at that stage, still a trainee neurosurgeon working with Jack Small. He had already developed an interest himself in Syringomyelia at an early stage in his career. As a junior hospital doctor, he was asked by this man, Professor Brodie Hughes, to present a case of Syringomyelia at one of the regular weekly clinical meetings. Brodie Hughes was the first professor of neurosurgery in Birmingham, working alongside Eric Turner in the original Queen Elizabeth unit. I recall Bernard telling me how, after he had been given this task by the professor, He had gone to the medical school library to read up about this condition, which he had not encountered before. He said that he simply could not understand it, and that he therefore set about trying to do so, something which he continued to do throughout his life. Most reviews of proposed mechanisms underlying the development of Syringomyelia will quote both James Gardner's seminal work and the theories subsequently put forward by Bernard Williams. Bernard's term suck and slosh is frequently quoted, this being proposed by him to explain how Syrinx cavities form and enlarge. The main difference between the ideas of Gardner and Williams concerned the principal sources of energy behind formation of Syrinx cavities, what Bernard Williams referred to as the filling mechanism. Gardner considered this to be arterial pulsation acting upon the cerebrospinal fluid within the back of the head. Williams considered that venous pressure waves were a more likely cause. These two different forces act in different ways, one consisting of regular small amplitude waves occurring some 70 times a minute. The other consists of periodic high amplitude venous pressure waves generated by coughing, bending over or physical straining. Later studies, led by Dr. Edward Oldfield in America and, more recently, by Dr. Marcus Studley in Australia, lead us to believe that it is probably the arterial pulsations that cause Syrinx cavities to form, although our understanding of these matters remains incomplete. On the other hand, venous pressure waves caused by physical straining, we refer to these as Valsalva-like manoeuvres, are important in the generation of the cerebrospinal pressure dissociation headaches that we recognize as being typical of the Chiari symptom profile. We must credit Bernard Williams for elucidating this mechanism. He carried out pioneering studies on his patients, demonstrating that, during any Valsalva-like manoeuvre, whilst the pressure rises in both the head and the spinal canal, the net movement of cerebrospinal fluid is from the spine into the head. In somebody with normal internal anatomy at the craniovertebral junction, once the physical straining ceases, the displaced fluid will simply run back down into the spine. In somebody with a Chiari malformation, on the other hand, the herniated cerebellar tonsils act like a valve, preventing this return flow. As a result, the volume of the individual cerebrospinal fluid that has been injected into the head causes a transient rise in intracranial pressure, generating the severe, albeit short-lived headache, often described by the patient as an explosion. Interestingly, and of diagnostic value, may be the patient's observation that the headache comes on not during the straining or bending over, but when the strain is released or when the person gets back up. Bernard Williams published extensively throughout his career, including peer-reviewed original work in medical journals, teaching articles in nursing and postgraduate publications and in textbooks, including 2 landmark publications on Syringomyelia. His work was not confined to this field, and he made important contributions to our understanding of other disorders of cerebrospinal fluid circulation, as well as other neurosurgical diseases. His work was recognized by the award of the Holter Memorial Prize in 1977 and the Pudens Prize in 1994. He received further honours from the Royal College of Surgeons of England. I first met Bernard Williams when I was a medical student. I was impressed by what a human and reasonable person he was. He had none of the arrogance or pomposity that was the caricature of hospital consultants in that era. Indeed, he possessed an extraordinarily self-effacing modesty that belied his remarkable intelligence. He encouraged students and young doctors to see the fascination in clinical neurological science and to share his enthusiasm for this subject. He had an open-minded approach to whatever matters he considered and was always completely honest in what he said. When operating, he paid meticulous attention to detail. When results were not as good as he would want them to be, he would agonize over the reasons and always seek to improve himself. Outside the world of neurosurgery, Bernard Williams had a passion for the game of chess, a talent supported by his extraordinary memory. His collection of 35mm slides, used to deliver lectures in the days before PowerPoint, were filed not by subject but by patient name. If he wished to speak on a given subject, then he would select illustrative slides relating to individual cases which he remembered by individual patient names. When playing chess, having defeated his opponent, he would set up the board and replay the whole game from scratch, illustrating each of the moves made by him and his opponent and where that opponent had gone wrong. He once complained to me, however, that his memory was beginning to fail as he was beginning to struggle to play 8 games of blindfold chess simultaneously. It was therefore very fitting that his widow chose a chess piece as the headstone for his grave. Bernard died riding his motorbike, a victim of the impetuous haste of morning rush hour traffic. There are no lengthy, wordy inscriptions on the footstone, just his dates, preceded by what he wrote at the bottom of all his letters. Bernard Williams, neurosurgeon. One of the people who was influenced by Bernard Williams was the late Anne Conroy. As a Syringomyelia sufferer herself, she was impressed by 2 things. One was the seeming lack of knowledge about or understanding of Syringomyelia and Chiari amongst healthcare professionals. The other was Bernard Williams. Crippled though she was by her condition, Anne set about founding the charity which now bears her name in order to fund Bernard's continuing work and to provide support for other people affected by these conditions. As for Bernard's legacy, he left behind him 4 children by his first marriage and 2 from his second. 2 of these have become doctors. They, of course, each have their own memories of their father. There are also many of Bernard's former patients who remember him with fondness and gratitude. So too do many neurosurgeons who trained under his direction. His influence was not confined to the United Kingdom. Many of his works are still quoted in medical articles. He is remembered with particular fondness in North America, again by former colleagues and patients. One member of the American Syringomyelia Alliance project commented after his death that Bernard Williams was so unlike any other doctor I've ever met, more like one of us. In addition to him seeing as contributing to the knowledge and treatment of Syringomyelia, she also commented that he contributed on the human scale and that he cared enough to share his time with those who needed him. From its foundation as Anne's Neurological Trust Society, inspired by Bernard Williams, the now renamed Anne Conroy Trust has developed over the past 38 years into a highly successful support organisation for people living with Syringomyelia or Chiari. It has also organised teaching events for healthcare professionals, both at a national and an international level. It supported the completion and publication in 2014 of the monograph entitled Syringomyelia, a Disorder of CSF Circulation. In this volume is a chapter entitled Historical Vignettes. In this chapter, the account of Anne Conroy's life was derived from a eulogy written about her following her death by Bernard Williams. The closing sentences of this eulogy read, "She may not ever have been fit to work or to marry or to bear children, and she may never have travelled far in her lifetime, but the journey of her spirit was immense. The work that she began will surely continue." Here we witness Bernard's capacity to see good in others. Between them, Bernard Williams and Anne Conroy have had a lasting influence on the world of Syringomyelia and Chiari. It has been a privilege for me, for over 20 years, to have acted as a steward to the service that they created. I now look forward to witnessing further developments as younger, enthusiastic and very talented neurosurgeons and neurologists take things forward, further realising this prophecy made by Bernard Williams.